Morning again and welcome. Great to have you with us on this third Sunday of Lent. First, a few instructions about our service and how it will proceed. At the end of our service, we will celebrate the Eucharist, the Lord's table, communion. All baptized Christians, baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit into Christ and his church, are welcome to come and receive at the table today. If you'd like to receive, we just ask you outstretch your hands, and one of our servers will place a piece of bread, a wafer, into your hand. And from there, you have a choice. You can either eat the bread and then take hold of the chalice and drink directly from the cup, or you can hold onto your bread and dip it into the wine. If you're not baptized yet, you're on a journey towards baptism, or just don't wish to receive today for any reason, you're still very welcome to come forward. If that's you, we just invite you to cross your arms over your body, just a physical sign to us, not to try and serve you bread and wine, but instead we will pray a blessing over you this morning. If you need a low gluten communion wafer, there's a serving station in the corner of the sanctuary to my right, your left, and you'll find our server there for you. Our offering boxes are available at the front of the sanctuary here for cash and checks, or we have a debit machine at the welcome desk in the foyer. At the end of our service today, following the closing blessing, this altar space at the front will be open for you to come and spend further time in prayer or reflection with the Lord in response to the word today. And our prayer ministry teams will also be available at the front at the end of the service. So if we can stand with you in prayer for anything today, we would love to do that. Please come and see one of our prayer ministry teams. And if you are not wanting to spend time in quiet and prayer and reflection, ask that you move towards the back of the sanctuary at the end of the service to keep this front space open for prayer. Holy Week is the highlight of our year, the culmination of our Lenten journey as we journey with Jesus to the cross from Palm Sunday on April 13th through Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday on April 20th. We have several special events during Holy Week. If you've never journeyed through Holy Week with us before, this is a warm invitation to grab a Holy Week calendar from the welcome desk and mark your calendar to join us during that week. It's where our life kind of gets put on hold. Our regular rhythms of life get put on hold to journey with Jesus to the cross. We eat together a lot during that week, and we have several meals and special events. Our Maundy, Thursday soup and bun potluck supper. Our new this year late night ice cream buffet after the vigil. I know, we're very excited about that. We're celebrating lots of baptisms, and we want to celebrate on that night with them. So there'll be late night ice cream and our Easter Sunday breakfast. And so we need volunteers to help all of these events happen. So if you'd like to scoop soup or scoop ice cream or wash dishes or help wipe tables, set up tables and chairs, there is a sign up at the welcome desk, or we have an online sign-up sheet as well. So we would love for you to come and serve with us. It's a great way to get to know people and to just be family as we do these meals and events together during Holy Week. As we let you know a couple of weeks ago, we need to replace one of our rooftop units so that we don't melt once summer hits. Jeremy made this slide. I didn't see it till this morning. So there you go. Forecast plus 35 indoors over the summer. So we are trying to raise $12,000, which was not in our budget this year, to replace this unit. It needs to happen ASAP. So if you'd like to donate to the cause, please mark your offering envelope rooftop unit. Synod 2025, the dates have been released. So our diocese, the Anglican Diocese of Canada, have released the dates for Synod, which is our diocesan annual gathering. It's a mixture of teaching and reports from across churches in the diocese and business meetings like an AGM. Synod this year will be earlier than it has been in past years, October the 29th to the 31st in Vancouver. In addition to our clergy, we get to take 3 lay delegates and 1 youth delegate, age 16 to 25, to represent Christ the Redeemer at the Synod. So your expenses are covered, and you must be available to travel a day early on October 28th and return on October 31st. If you are interested in putting your name forward as a candidate for lay or youth delegate, please let Father Stephen know by Easter Sunday. Appointment of our delegates will be by way of a vote, which will happen in May. We'll let you know more details about the date of the vote in due course. That's all for our announcements. I'd like to invite Graham for our scripture reading, and Father Rob to preach.
Our first reading is taken from the book of Exodus, chapter 3, beginning at the first verse. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place which you are standing on is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What's his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. The word of the Lord. Our second reading is from the first book of Corinthians, letter of Corinthians, from Paul to the Corinthians. Chapter 10, beginning at the first verse. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things took place as examples for us, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor grumble, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stand take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. The word of the Lord.
Everyone, it's good to be with you today on the third Sunday of Lent. As of yesterday, we were 16 days into our pilgrimage to the cross. Together with the church across the globe, we've spent 16 days walking the way of the wilderness, or the way of the cross, a spiritual Via Dolorosa. You've been in my prayers as we meet together each morning to pray the daily office, and you'll continue to be all the way through this season. Today, our Old Testament and New Testament passages take us back to the wilderness. Our passages today overlap quite explicitly. Both explain Moses and the people of God's journey from slavery through their time in the wilderness. In our Old Testament reading, we see how the wilderness journey was initiated, and then in 1 Corinthians, how it was extended. In Exodus 3, we read about Yahweh revealing himself to Moses in the burning bush on the west side of the wilderness of Horeb. It says that they were on the mountain of God. God reveals himself to Moses on his mountain in the wilderness. If we pause to think about that for just a moment, we'll see a valuable revelation. Our passage shows us that this mountain of God, a place where God resides, is located within the wilderness. During Lent, that should give us something to contemplate. God has a home in the wilderness. He's present there with us. The burning bush discourse has many things that we could focus on, but there are two that I want to draw out for the sake of our time today. The first is in verse 5, where God says, "Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." Yahweh, whose presence has set a bush ablaze, warns Moses not to come any closer and that he must remove his sandals. Now, before we unpack that further, I want us to look at the second thing that we're going to turn our attention to, which we're going to focus on first. So I'm flipping them really. Through verses 7 through 12, Yahweh has explained what he's asking Moses to do. Then in verse 13, Moses, who is clearly feeling unworthy of this call, asks by what name he can tell the Hebrew people he has been sent. And Yahweh responds with this in verses 14 and 15. He says, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you." God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations." To be in the presence of this God, Moses was made to take off his sandals. And when he asked God for a name, who is he supposed to do this on behalf of? God's answer was, "I am who I am." He is the I am. Some translators say God's answer to Moses could also be translated as, I am what I am, or I will be what I will be. That probably clarifies it for us all. We feel much better now, right? Okay, good, got it. Yahweh is saying to Moses that he is pure being. There's nothing that can explain him fully. There's nothing that can describe him. He's beyond what is known. He's beyond what can be understood. He just is. Which means Moses can't choose to get to know him. He can't study him to learn. The only way to get to know him is for this God to reveal himself to us. So Yahweh goes on to help Moses understand. He gives Moses some explanation. He says that he is the God of Israel, the God of the Hebrew people. Who is the God of pure being? Who is this God that is beyond explanation, beyond comprehension, and beyond knowing? He's the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Or understand who it is he's approaching. Moses simply sees, and Yahweh's response shows that Moses' first reaction to being in God's presence is wrong. Don't come any closer. You don't understand. Stay where you are. Yahweh has to tell Moses exactly what to do as a warning to keep him safe, to teach him how to be in the presence of God. But also notice that Yahweh wants Moses there. He doesn't want Moses to step away. He doesn't say, "What do you think you're doing? Get off my holy ground." No, he says, "Don't come any closer. Stay where you are. Be here with me." He just wants him to be there in the right way. So he makes it clear. He tells him how. If we were to continue reading the whole conversation between Moses and Yahweh in the subsequent passages, we'd see that Moses was wrapped up in the cares of his life. At first, in our passage, obviously, his mind is focused on his job. He's concerned about his sheep. But then as the conversation goes on, he begins to focus on his unworthiness. He points out his physical disability. It's like, God, I don't think you understand. I can't do this physically. I have a disability. Do you not know that I am incapable of what you're asking me to do? All he's seeing is what he's been wrapped up in his whole life. He goes on and he mentions just kind of vaguely this distorted family history as a reason that he cannot do what's being asked. Do you know what I've done? Do you know where I come from? Do you know what they're going to think of me, God? They're not going to receive me. Those cares of the world are what Moses' sandals represent. They represent the barrier we wrap ourselves with to keep us safe from the unwanted mess or dangers of this world. They represent the ways in which we instinctually protect ourselves from the world, the ways we hide ourselves away. Moses had to physically take off his sandals so that the things of the world that were stuck to the outside of these sandals were not on holy ground. Why? Because Yahweh wanted Moses' true self to come into contact with him. Yahweh, who is pure being, can only be connected to us through our true being. Yahweh is telling Moses that this will only work if he takes off the layers of self-protection and falsehood and touch his true self to God's presence. Throughout the history of the church, these outer wrappings have been called different things. Sometimes they're referred to as the false self. Scripturally, this would be called the flesh. These wrappings of the false self or of the flesh are formed by our inordinate passions and desires. And we use them as a way of keeping out everything that would get too close to our hearts or would ask too much of our souls. We build a protective layer around us so that we can feel safe, so that we can seek our passions, so that we can worship our idols, so that we can build our lives in the way that we want. We block everyone and everything from what is really going on inside. The problem is, we don't know what's going on inside. As we build these protective layers, which we do all of our life, we begin to lose track of where we end and the wrappings begin. In time, we start to believe that this is just who we are. You can see Moses did that himself when he talks about his inability to speak the words, which is likely a stutter or some form of verbal issue. All he can think is this outer way. I can't go speak in public. I don't do that, God. Because they won't, what will they think of me? And how will it make me look? And how will it make you look? And do you not understand that this is who I am? And God cuts through it all and he says, that is not who you are. You have made that into your identity, and I'm telling you that you are something different than that. That there's a deeper place. There's a deeper place than your sin. There's a deeper place than your disabilities. There's a deeper place than your family history. There is something inside of you that I breathed into you that I want to come out. There's a part of you that's a part of me that I want to flourish. We got to get through those wrappings. We got to get through the stuff on the outside. See, when Yahweh shows up, he cuts through all of it. Josie was singing an old David Roos song. I don't know if you know who David Roos is, but for me, those are like the good old days. Think of being a teenage revival kid doing all sorts of weird stuff. But I can tell you what God did every time he showed up. He never attached himself to the weird stuff. He cut through everything on the outside right to the heart. You always knew, even if you didn't want to say it, you always knew in that setting when God was really there and when you were hoping really bad he'd show up. If I get a little bit more exuberant, I hope. I really want you to be here, Lord. But you always knew when he showed up. Because all of the mess gets cut through. All of the wrappings, he just tears right through it. He tells us where the layers of the false self are present and gives us the way to be free from them. And for some of us, that sounds safe. sounds like salvation, and for others, that sounds really scary. And the reality is, it's both. God is not safe around our idols or around our flesh. And the reason that he is unsafe there is because he has come to save us from it. If you're a C.S. Lewis reader, no doubt a famous passage in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe comes to mind when I say that God is not safe there. Speaking about their faith in their coming Savior, Aslan, Mr. Beaver says, Aslan is a lion, the lion, the great lion. Oh, says Susan, I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. Safe? Says Mr. Beaver. Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. Maybe this passage in Exodus 3 was one of the stories rattling around in Lewis's mind when he writes those beautiful words. Don't come any closer, Yahweh says. But don't leave either. Remove your sandals so that it is you that touches the ground, so that you can experience my holiness. And then we can discuss what's next. This moment between Yahweh and Moses is, as Lent is meant to be for us, preparation for his presence. Now let's turn our attention to 1 Corinthians because the story progresses. If you don't know the story, Moses did as Yahweh instructed him, and the Hebrew people were rescued from slavery. But there was trouble after their rescue as the people were not able to listen like Moses was. They would not remove the outer wrappings they had put on while they were in Egypt, which means they were not prepared through Yahweh's presence, but they were cut down by it. St. Paul goes out of his way to ensure the Corinthian church realizes how blessed the people were after they left Egypt. They knew God's miraculous rescue. They knew provision of water from a rock and bread that was brought from the heavens. They knew the beauty of baptism through the cloud of God's presence and the sea. They had a great leader leading them. And even further than that, just as Yahweh had made himself available to Moses through the burning bush, Christ was making himself available to the people through the rock. He was present with them. God was not just sending things to them. He had made himself present to them, but they still fell. Paul's words are striking. He says they were overthrown in the wilderness. How were they overthrown? They made a celebration of their idolatry, and they made misery of God's provision. They cried out to Aaron to build them a god of their own desires, a god of their making, the golden calf. And he did. And they made merriment of it. It says that they ate and drank, that they celebrated in their idolatry. They were joyful at all they had accomplished. Then, as God provides for them, they grumbled and they complained and they tested God. They challenged his goodness and his mercy at every step. When he invites them up the mountain into his presence, they stayed away and turned to their idols that they had previously known. St. Paul tells the church that this was all written down so that we would know and not follow in their footsteps. Because of all we now know about how they acted in the wilderness and what happened to them because of it, St. Paul says in verse 14, "Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry." So how are we, who are here on the third week of Lent in 2025, supposed to follow St. Paul's words and flee from idolatry? How are we meant to learn from the mistakes of the past? Well, I want to go back to where we started today. This is a time of preparation for presence. Guys, Easter is coming. We know this. But if we do nothing to prepare, we will say no to God's presence, and we will turn back to the same idols all over again. We will miss Christ, who is the rock, providing living water. We will miss Christ, who is the bread of heaven that we will eat and never hunger again. We will let our passions, the outer garment of our lives, flourish. We'll let our emotions and the satisfaction of our feelings overrun us. We will never hear Yahweh call us to remove our sandals and touch our souls to his presence. We will never let Yahweh come into contact with the core of who we are, because we will be blind to it and to him. We will be deaf to the cry of our hearts, hearing only the cry of our passions. Our will walk in opposition to the will of Yahweh, and we will be overthrown, just as the people of God were in the wilderness. Instead of the wilderness being a place of revelation and preparation for God's presence, it can become our grave. Yahweh is coming, and he's promised that he will provide you with everything you need to live and flourish in the world. He loves you and wants you to be present with him, to behold him, and to be beheld by him. He wants the layers of sin, shame, sensual pleasure, and self-protection to be removed so that we may be as he is. St. Paul ends our passage with a warning and an encouragement, which is where I want to end today as well. First, if you hear all of this and you've made no connection to your own soul, or you believe that there is nothing for you to deal with, no layer for you to remove or sin for you to let God root out, hear St. Paul's warning. Anyone who thinks he stands, take heed lest he fall. We all have idols or passions or a false self that needs to be peeled from our soul. Now is the time to choose to remove it before God. Take it off and leave it here at the altar in confession. Secondly, to everyone who says, "This is too much. I can't do all of this," receive the consolation of St. Paul. He says, God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. God's desire is for you to endure, for you to flourish, and for you to live. And we do that by bearing our soul before him, by removing the protective layers, fleeing from our idols, and stepping into his holy place so that we may be known in our deepest places. He's giving us the strength to do it today. and he is with us through it. Prostrate yourself before him and bare your soul, because that is where you were created to be, and that is where you will be made ready for the presence of God. Amen.